What a headshot! What a head!
How's it guys, this is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video I will take you guys to the ultimate guide to the upcoming Game Week 14. So as all the ultimate guides, I'm going to be going over three main sections in this video. The first section will be the stats list / the watch list, where I go over the teams with the best stats defensively and from an attacking point of view. Then I'm going to take a look at the best fixtures from now till Game Week 16. As you guys know, Game Week 16 to Game Week 17 is going to be the World Cup. So it's going to be kind of integral if you guys want to take some 1 week to 3 week punts. Then I've added a bonus talking point featuring replacements for one SALAH or two Mitrovic, as those Fulham fixtures get quite tough soon. Then the final talking point, all about captaincy. If Erling Haaland's out for this upcoming game week, who to captain, who's the best option, projected points, all that good stuff. I'll be covering those assets. Now if there are any other talking points you guys want me to feature, drop them in the comments down below or on my Discord server, where I'm slightly more active if you guys have any questions about Game Week 14 onwards. But going back to this ultimate guide, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So starting off this ultimate guide, as we always go over, we're going to be going over the stats list, / our watch list, going to be going over the best teams, top 5, bottom 5 teams, in terms of attack and defense. Now if you guys want to go over the player stats, kind of compare options one by one, you guys can go over to fantasyfootballfix.com, go over to the Optus Stats sandbox. That's where I took all these stats from, but you guys can kind of filter it to your players. Now in terms of our attacking stat, the stat I use of choice is going to be XG non-penalty. Decided to go for the non-penalty version, as penalties aren't always that kind of sustainable. But if you guys are more into that stat, then you can find that over on Fix. And let's go over the good before the bad. The top 5 teams in terms of XG per game, gone for per game averages, as you guys know, blank game week 8. And those blank game weeks haven't been fulfilled yet. Now the number 1 team is no surprise, been kind of top of our ultimate guide most game weeks. It's going to be Man City with a lovely XG of 2.04. Now to make matters worse for those teams facing them, Leicester, Fulham and Brentford are some of the worst defenses in the Prem at the moment, so therefore your Man City assets should have an absolute field day. But we'll be talking about Man City more, not only in the defensive stats but also the best fixtures. As you guys can see, those next 3 are simply outstanding. Next up is going to be a team that's kind of out of form, couldn't score against Nottingham Forest at home, but still have a pretty good XG non-penalty. It's going to be Liverpool with 1.95. Now if they can't score against Nottingham Forest, can they score against Leeds, Tottenham or Southampton? Who kind of knows, but at least their stats are still looking pretty strong. But all jokes aside, I do have faith in these Liverpool assets, and as you guys can see, the stats are backing them up. Unfortunately, their finishing has been a bit poor though. But I generally wouldn't be put off someone like a Mo Salah with that high XG non-penalty. Nice fixtures coming up from an attacking point of view, he's going nowhere for me. Then next up comes in arguably the best team in the Prem this season between Man City and Arsenal. I think they share that kind of trophy. Arsenal have 1.8 XG per game and a lovely fixture against Nottingham Forest at home up next. Now you guys could argue if they kept a clean sheet against Liverpool, they might do so against Arsenal, but I probably don't think so. It's a home game for Arsenal, so there should be quite a high score there. But then unfortunately Chelsea and Wolves are okay defensively. Then we have Newcastle up next, 1.57. Now this has not changed since last week. Still the 4th best team in terms of XG non-penalty. And with Villa and Southampton are next, I think they're going to continue that. And I guess the only annoying thing is game week 16 against Chelsea at home. It is a home game though. Newcastle have been pretty strong at home, so therefore an asset like a Callum Wilson could be on the radar. Then the final team, Brighton, 1.44, still continues good form that they have had. Scored against Man City, could score against Chelsea. Then it's Wolves and Villa up next. Probably the only asset I would go for is going to be Trossard, but I sold him last game week. Now in terms of the top 3 teams, pretty solid there, but Newcastle and Brighton are kind of surprise entries for me. Newcastle definitely had a pretty good start to the Premier League season, therefore it might be worth jumping on them. But now, as I always say, we spoke about the good, let's go over to the bad. And in terms of the attacking stats, there's 2 ways you guys can look at this. The first way is to kind of avoid these assets. If you want to bring an attacker, they might not be that great. But the second way to kind of look at it, and the more kind of logical way, is that if your defenders are facing these options, the chance of a clean sheet could be pretty strong. Now the first team is going to be Bournemouth, a side that I actually own an attacker from. SALAH, currently injured. If he's going to be out for the long amount of time, probably will take him out. But even if I do keep him, the chances of him getting attacking returns aren't too high. That's because Bournemouth have an XG non-penalty of 0.67, the worst in the Prem at the moment, and they face Spurs up next. Now they do have Leeds and Everton, which I think they should do quite well against, so if SALAH is out for 1 game week only, I might still just keep him. Then we have Leicester, which is kind of a surprise for me because Leicester have been a super kind of free scoring side, but if you guys did watch the Wolves game, they won 4-0, but the XG wasn't even that high. So unfortunately the game week 13 win wasn't enough to kind of boost their XG on penalty average, and they're still sitting at 0.84. Now with Man City at home up next, not really thinking they're going to improve that XG too much, but then Everton and West Ham aren't too bad. Now an important team for me in terms of my own kind of starting 11 is going to be Southampton, as they do face Crystal Palace away in game week 14, and I do own Anderson in my defense. So 0.86 is going to be the XG per game, and this fills me with confidence about those Crystal Palace assets, but when you do look at the defenses, you guys will see that this is kind of a bad attack versus a bad defense. They also have Newcastle in game week 15, I'm a double defense owner, pretty happy about that. Then Liverpool in game week 16 where I might jump on Trent. Then finally, we have another promoted side. It's going to be Nottingham Forest with 0.89. They have Arsenal away up next. Quite a tough game there. But then Brentford and Crystal Palace at home, 2 home games. And both those 2 defenses are pretty bad. Then finally, a team that I knew was struggling to score goals, but actually not doing that badly in terms of the Prem. It's going to be Wolves with 0.91. Now, Brentford's a great game, but then Brighton and Arsenal at home. They are home games, but don't expect too much from them. So these 5 teams I would target if your defenders face them. Good chance of a clean sheet. And if you want to bring one of these assets in from an attacking point of view, maybe think twice. Now we've covered the attacking side of things, let's go over the defensive side of things, and the stat there is going to be XG conceded, basically how many goals these teams are expected to concede per game, but you guys can also look at expected clean sheets if you want to. So number 1 team in terms of attack and defense is yet again Man City at the end of the day. Just shows how quality this team has been this Premier League season. They actually conceded 0.83. Now up next, Leicester, Fulham and Brentford. I can see kind of 2 clean sheets out of those 3, so hopefully Cancelo starts all of them. Then we have Arsenal. I'm potentially looking to bring in an Arsenal asset. This looks pretty strong. The second best defense in the Prem at the moment, 0.85. Nottingham Forest and Wolves are 2 good clean sheet games there. You guys just saw both those 2 sides are struggling from an attacking point of view, but then Chelsea in Game Week 15 is a little bit annoying. Next up is going to be Brighton, kind of expected there. Great start to this Premier League season. Historically, a pretty good defense, 1.05. Chelsea, Wolves and Aston Villa though can see some clean sheets there if you guys do want to go for a Brighton defender. Then next up is going to be my favorite team this game week. Game week 13, Zuma, my savior for the game week. Massive 15 points. They have the 4th best defense with 1.07. Now United away is a tough game, but then Crystal Palace and Leicester could be a clean sheet in both of those games. Then the final team is going to be Spurs with 1.11. Bournemouth's a great game. Then Liverpool and Leeds though, they might not be the best from a defensive point of view. But generally what I would say is the Man City and Arsenal assets I would definitely target. A West Ham asset looks pretty strong for game week 15 and 16. And if Doherty or Perisic was nailed to start, I'd potentially look at them for the Prem. But definitely these next 5 teams are going to be the ones to target from an attacking point of view. So if your attackers are facing them, a massive haul's probably loading and there could even be captaincy options. Now the first team is going to be Fulham, 1.97 expected goals per game. And they have Everton, Man City and United in the next 3 game weeks. So definitely game week 15, Man City already have a triple up, but United in game week 16, if you guys do want to take some 1 week punts, a Sancho, Rashford, that sort of thing, game week 16 will be the mark to do it. We then have Nottingham Forest with 1.7, Arsenal, Brentford and Crystal Palace. If you guys own those assets, still do target them, even though they kept a clean sheet against Liverpool in game week 13. But here's where things get a little bit spicy. So talking about Liverpool, they're going to be the 3rd worst defense in the Prem at the moment, based on XG conceded with 1.58. So who would have thought at the start of the season, kind of 14 game weeks in, Liverpool would have the 3rd worst defense in the Prem, simply outstanding. And this has definitely made me consider bringing in Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now Leeds up next, Spurs up next, and then Southampton. I think Southampton's probably the only one I might expect a clean sheet, but Leeds have also been struggling from an attacking point of view. But as I said, simply outstanding. I'm almost speechless in terms of this as a Liverpool fan. Shocking to see my team in the top 5 worst defenses in the Prem at the moment. But at least I don't own any of their FPL defenders. We then have Crystal Palace, who have slightly improved their defense, but still in the bottom 5 teams. They have an XG of 1.57. Southampton, West Ham and Nottingham Forest though, great fixtures on paper. Then the final team we spoke about, Brentford, they've kind of crept into this bottom 5, 1.51 XG conceded per game, but they do have Wolves and Nottingham Forest, who I think they will improve. But definitely game week 16, Man City, yet again showing why they're going to be kind of perma-captains, or Haaland's a perma-captain here, because they have great fixtures on paper. But yet again, target these 5 teams from an attacking point of view, so get the attackers that face these. But that's going to wrap up kind of our stats list, such our watch list, the best attack, the worst attacks, versus the best defenses and the worst defenses. Let me know if you guys want me to pull any more stats, can get you stats down below or on my Discord server. But now going on to our best fixtures talking point, and I'm going to be going over the next 3 game weeks because as I mentioned, the World Cup will be happening after game week 16, unlimited transfers or almost a wild card that we will receive, so generally just focus on these next 3. Now in terms of 1 week punts, I'll also go over those if you guys want to go for any of them, but this week it's pretty self-explanatory. We have some great fixtures on paper, and Arsenal vs Nottingham Forest, Spurs face Bournemouth, Liverpool have Leeds as well, and obviously Man City have Leicester. But in terms of the next 3 game weeks, if you guys want to target teams that have good fixtures for the next 3, you might not want to look further than the first team, Man City. So yes, Man City almost unfair in terms of FPL, have the best options in terms of attack and defense, and other best fixtures, Leicester away, Fulham at home and Brentford at home, great fixtures on paper and great options. So if you guys don't own a triple up of Man City, please do fulfill that triple up. I definitely put the priority badge on them for transfers in. Now the next team I might not go out of my way to bring them in, it's going to be the Everton assets, Fulham away, Leicester at home and then Bournemouth away, almost similar fixtures to Man City. But here's where the tough thing comes in. Yes, we have an Anthony Gordon, we have a defender like a Tarkowski that we could bring in, but in terms of the Everton assets, I haven't seen enough for them to potentially look at. However, I am covering an option late in the video when we do talk about the forwards. Next up is going to be Liverpool, and I was a little bit confused here because the fixtures on paper aren't that great. Leeds at home is a great game, but then Spurs away is a tough one, and Southampton at home, they're actually a mid-table defensive side. But still, this is enough for me to kind of keep Salah. If you want to bring in a Trent or a Darwin, they're also great assets to potentially look at. Then we have the Spurs assets, spoke about that Bournemouth game in Game Week 14, great fixture on paper. Then they have Liverpool at home and Leeds at home, and as you guys would have seen, Liverpool now the third worst defense, so I'm highlighting them as a green fixture. So if you guys do own a Harry Kane or a Son, they could even be captaincy options in that game week. So when seeing this, I was almost tempted to do Salah to Son because in the next three, Spurs definitely have better fixtures than Liverpool. Then we have Crystal Palace. I own a defender and an attacker from them, so nice to see that their fixtures are still pretty strong. They have Southampton at home, which is now a mid-range fixture, West Ham away, which is a tough game, but then ended off with Nottingham Forest, which was probably the plum game of the game week. Then finally we're going to go over to West Ham United away, a little bit of a tougher game there, mid-table defense. Crystal Palace and Leicester though have some of the worst defenses in the Prem. But what I would say about that is that if you guys do own Jared Bowen, you might actually want to keep him for game week 15 and 16 as the fixtures look pretty strong there. But otherwise, in terms of these teams, definitely prioritize the Man City assets, and there could be one or two cheeky punts on those Spurs assets if you guys do own Mo Salah to maybe a Son. But let me know what team you guys are kind of targeting. Is there a team that I potentially missed out on in terms of the best fixtures? And if you were to take a 3-week punt, who would it be on? Now the second last talking point of this video is going to be more kind of based around Game Week 14 to Game Week 16. We're going to be looking at replacements for one Solanke or two Mitrovic. Now in terms of Mitrovic, the reason I'm saying that is that Game Week 14, yes, he has Everton at home, but then after that has some pretty tough games, so you guys might look to replace him next game week. Whereas with Solanke right now, don't exactly know how long he's going to be out for, but if you can afford to upgrade, these are my favorite three assets. So that's probably the first thing that I will detail about these assets. All three of them are more expensive than a Mitrovic or Solanke. The reason I'm going for these three is for my own team. I have a lot of money in the bank. I think it might be an expectation that you guys do as well with all these downgrades that we've made over the prior game weeks. Now the first option I'll be going for in terms of my Solanke/Mitrovic replacement is going to be Callum Wilson, and he comes in at 7.3 million with an ownership of 2.3%. So you guys can see that I've kind of gone a little bit differential in terms of my forward picks. 2.3% is outstanding for how consistent Callum Wilson can be. The next two fixtures upcoming, Aston Villa at home and Southampton away, are good fixtures on paper, and as you guys would have seen with attacking stats, Newcastle look pretty strong. Now my only concern about Callum Wilson is game week kind of 16, but you can always take a 1 week punt on a forward. Now the next option has been pretty consistent over this Premier League season, however, he has had the yellow card debate. It's going to be Ivan Toney at 7.5 million, but with a high ownership of 28%. The reason I'm highlighting the yellow card debate is that Ivan Toney currently is sitting on 4, so if he picks up another yellow card, he's going to miss one of the game weeks. Now what you're probably hoping for is that he picks up a yellow card against Nottingham Forest after his hat-trick, maybe he takes off his shirt celebrating or something like that after a double hattie, then he misses Man City anyways. But the Wolves at home game and the Nottingham Forest game are definitely the two to target. Then as with Callum Wilson, you can always take a 1 week punt in game week 16. Then our final option to go for, spike out those Everton assets, is going to be DCL. So super out there punt, because in terms of fitness, I think he's just come back from that long-term injury. He should be fine for the upcoming game weeks, but please keep your eyes on it. I just think he has some great fixtures coming up. Fulham away, Leicester at home, and then Bournemouth away. As you would have seen, the second best fixtures in the Prem at the moment, and his ownership is only 0.4 and his cost is 7.9. But yes, the only concern there is going to be the injury news, and also Everton having been the most attacking side, how they're going to adapt to DCL being in the team now. But let's just say that he hits the ground running and scores in the next three. But definitely the first two assets, Toney and Callum Wilson, the more reliable options. DCL's are out there punt though, with his low ownership, a massive differential if you guys want to go for it. Now there are some other assets. If you guys can afford a Harry Kane, he looks like a great asset to go for, super consistent, but I think the mid-range options are probably more reachable. But let me know in the comments down below, if you're going to replace Solanke or Mitrovic, who will you bring in? Will you downgrade them to a 4.5 to get more money in the midfield or the defensive department, or is your replacement on the screen right now? Now the final talking point is going to be all about captaincy, and obviously the first thing I want to address is going to be Erling Haaland. If he is going to be back for Game Week 14, probably will put the captaincy armband on him. The most reliable option, you guys would have seen Leicester's defense is pretty bad, Man City's attack is pretty good, and so is Erling Haaland. But right now there has been images that were released on Twitter that he was having rehab with the team after the fixture, and therefore I do think he's going to be fine for Game Week 14. But let's just say, let's put the scenario out there that if Erling Haaland's out for Game Week 14, that even if he is going to be fit for Game Week 14 and you want to go differential, these are the assets I would look at. But I just want to put this out there that if he is going to be back for Game Week 14 as expected, everyone's probably going to captain him as he is the best option. But these next three assets, I mentioned this over on Twitter yesterday, that I generally think that Game Week 14 is a massive week for captaincy. I just think there's so many options to look at, great fixtures on paper. It's almost the best 1 week punt game week. Now the first option I'm going to be highlighting is definitely probably the most popular one. If Erling Haaland is going to be out, it's going to be Mo Salah against Leeds at home. Now Salah's scoring record against Leeds is simply outstanding. Great record at home as well against them, and that's why I think that he could be one to choose for captaincy. Now yes, Liverpool have struggled with form. Mo Salah plays tonight against Ajax. Please remember that I'm recording this before the Ajax game, so if Salah gets injured, touch wood that he won't, but if he does get injured, please just take that into account. But I just think that Liverpool are a completely different team at home at Anfield. Leeds also struggling from a defensive and attacking point of view, so what better combination do you want? I guess you would have liked some more form for Salah, but I think this might be one of those games that is a form changer. A more consistent option though is going to be Harry Kane against Bournemouth away, and just remember the Bournemouth goalkeeper might not be back to full fitness. Neto might be missing for this fixture. So Harry Kane has kind of ticked along nicely, not necessarily getting the massive hauls that he's expected to get, but still relatively reliable Captaincy asset. So I do think Harry Kane will be my probably second favorite option after Erling Haaland if you guys do own him. Then third up is the more out there punt, the differential punt, but Dayvy, probably the best fixture on paper, is be Arsenal vs Nottingham Forest, and I've chosen Saka. So Gabriel Jesus, Martinelli, those two assets could also be replacements, but I just think that I favour Saka because he is on penalties. Now, as mentioned, if you guys do compare the XG non-penalty versus the XG conceded of the team, Arsenal vs Nottingham Forest is the best fixture in GameWeek 14, so if you guys are kind of on the stats, the best fixture to target is going to be this one. I don't know why, I just think it might be his price point, but if I did own Salah and Saka, I probably would captain Salah because I know he might be more expensive, but I just think that he might be a better captaincy option, whereas with Arsenal, the goals might be shared. But I guess the argument there is that at least Arsenal are scoring goals, whereas Liverpool aren't, so even if Salah's kind of a talisman, if they're not scoring any goals, he's not getting anything. But that's just my thought on it. I probably would captain Salah over Saka, but if you guys own Harry Kane, I'd look at him. So once again, I'm asking you to let me know in the comments down below, who are you captaining for the upcoming game week? Is it going to be Erling Haaland, the Mr. Reliable, or would it be another reliable asset like a Harry Kane, or an unpredictable asset like a Saka, or maybe even a Salah? Let me know in the comments down below. But this will basically wrap up the video, guys. Hope you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like if you did and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. I'll be seeing you guys for the final team selection tomorrow, as I won't be doing a dayline stream for the upcoming Game Week 14. But I'm going to sign off. Today the FPL, and I'm out. Cheers. Bye.